What does a passive man look like? Huh? What? Did you say something? Passive men are everywhere. And sometimes they don't look like what we think they look like. We see people with a laid back characteristic, we think they're passive. Oftentimes they're not. Passive is something that really comes from within a man and it defines how he acts outside. So we're going to learn about what it is to be an overly passive man today. Have you ever been around those guys who don't make decisions? You ask them, hey, where do you want to eat? And I don't care. But then you pick a place and they're like, oh, I don't really like that. And you're like, well, which one is it? Oh, I don't care. But then they really do. Isn't that frustrating? Maybe you've been around people like that. Maybe you've been that guy. Well, it can happen to men all the time. Really, there's a passive problem among men today. A lot of men are just overly passive. Now, there's a difference between being passive and being laid back. You know, if you're laid back, that's fine. Laid back is a personality trait. A lot of guys are laid back. And in a lot of areas, they're laid back, and that's cool. There's a difference. Passive is when you're beyond laid back. You don't care about anything. And you just kind of float along in life. And as men, we're not designed to float in life. We're designed to steer, to have direction. And you see, even laid back people have things they're very strong about, very excited about. Like, have you ever been around a person, they may be laid back, but then they're big Star Wars fans? And so you start bringing up things that are maybe against Star Wars canon. Well, don't do that around people who are really into Star Wars. They'll argue with you. They'll explain every detail from all the movies. They'll go into books that you've never read, that they've read, they've memorized, and they're into it. Why? Because they're passionate about it. They have conviction about it. They're not passive when it comes to Star Wars. They may be laid back in other ways, but don't mess with their Star Wars. Hey guys, thanks for checking out the video. Hey, don't forget to click like below and subscribe so you won't miss a video in the future. But men who are overly passive a lot of times have some things that they're dealing with that they kind of want to hide behind their passiveness. A lot of men who are passive are hiding addictions and things that are going on in their life they don't want anyone else to know about. And what they do is they act like everything's fine. They act like, oh, I don't care. But they're hiding stuff. They're hurting on the inside. Some guys who are passive are really just passive aggressive. And what they do is they use snide comments, or they'll say something and, oh, I'm just joking. Oh, I didn't mean it. I'm just kidding around. But it's really little digs at you, kind of little sword strikes at you. And it's that passive aggressive. Or they just blow up randomly. Have you ever been around those people? They're fine. They're, oh, I don't care. I don't care. Then all of a sudden they just start screaming. They start cussing at you. They start throwing things at you. And you're like, dude, what in the world? They just filled up because they didn't know what to do with all the passive aggressive anger they've got on the inside. And a lot of men who are overly passive are passive aggressive. And sometimes when you get around those guys when they get older, it's not pretty. Have you ever seen those older guys who are just snide and cynical? What happens is a lot of times their passive aggressive nature just starts coming out. They don't filter it like they did when they were young, and you end up paying the price. Hey guys, if you want to know more about yourself as a man, I challenge you to take my 4A assessment. It's a simple assessment that helps you as a man learn about yourself, your achievements, your appetites, your attitudes, and your actions. Check the link below and go take the 4A assessment today. Other guys who are kind of into that whole overly passive thing don't know how to connect emotionally. And what happens is they don't know how to grow intimate, deep relationships with other people. So they have a hard time having a girlfriend or keeping a wife because they'll act a certain way, but then they have a wall that kind of blocks them from getting really close to people. And someone can start a relationship and they think, well, we'll grow closer together, but the guys won't. A lot of guys who are overly passive, they keep that shield up and they don't let anyone in. And so women, wives, girlfriends, they'll figure that out and they'll just kind of move on. And it also hurts those guys when they're trying to be a dad. They'll try to connect with their kid, or actually, they won't. They'll expect their kid to come to them. They'll expect their kid to act like the adult instead of them. And that's just not the way it was designed. And that's why being overly passive as a male can hurt you. You don't want to walk in being just overly passive. Being laid back is fine, but not being passive. You don't want to float along in life. You want to have some direction. You want to know where you're going. Now, when I talk about being overly passive, I'm not looking at you thinking it's you. I don't know who you are, but I know who I am. And I was that guy. See, for a lot of my life, I was insecure, thought more about what people thought of me, and I tried to live that way. I was hiding things in my life. I was kind of reading a room and kind of judging it by everybody. And that's been something that's been hard for me to outgrow because it took me learning how to not just float along in life, but to actually pick a direction and go, to develop some conviction in my life. And that's what you've got to do as a man. You've got to decide, who do I want to be? What direction do I want to go? And you got to start moving. See, men who are overly passive hold back and they don't do anything. Then they get angry, they get mad, and they never develop to be the best men they could be. What you want to do is pick a direction and go. And as you do that, you'll grow as a man and you'll really fulfill the purpose for your life.